Melbourne versus Palm Bay versus Sebastian versus Vero Beach versus Port Saint Lucie. We're diving to that right after this. So what is going on, everyone? My name is Andrew Pinch. I'm a local realtor here on the Florida East Coast. And if you're looking for a channel that goes over everything about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate anywhere on the Florida East Coast, make sure to like this video, tap that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell because I'll be uploading videos every single week about what it's like living here in the Florida East Coast. Also, we are getting calls from people every single day, and we absolutely love it. All about relocating to Florida. What can we do? What are our options? Everything that you could possibly think of under the sun. So make sure to call us, text us, or email us because we've got your back when making that move here to the Florida East Coast. Also, to make things a little bit easier, I opened up a brand new website. It is fleastcoast.com. And on that website, you'll be able to search for your dream property. You'll be able to type it in your criteria, and it's directly connected to 3 different MLSs. It's the Beaches MLS, the Indian River County MLS, and the Space Coast MLS. So that's pretty much just covers the entire stretch of the Florida East Coast right there. Alrighty guys, so we're gonna start off this by going from the top down, and which one we're gonna start off with first is Melbourne, Florida. So first off, population Melbourne, Florida is right around 86,000 people. And let's go ahead and jump into the pros and cons for there. So first one I wanted to talk about is the strong job market within Melbourne, Florida. So I actually just had someone email me the other day wanting to move to the Space Coast of Florida so they can be closer to Disney. So that is something to consider. If an hour drive, hour commute to where you want to work is kind of what you're looking for, Melbourne can open up a ton of options. The reason for that is because Orlando is just about an hour away from Melbourne, Florida. So if that's okay with you, if you're only hitting the office once or twice a week, or you only have to just periodically show up to the physical office when you're actually working out of Orlando, Florida, that could be big. Also, SpaceX. If you're an Elon fan and you want to get in there and talk about the spaceships, space rockets, you're a lot more educated than me on that matter, and you want to take a job working for SpaceX, that's the home base right there. And plus, it's also a little bit of a perk for you to watch the rocket launches go off whenever you live in that Melbourne area. You are right there, cannot be any closer than that. Pro number 2 is going to be the fact that it's a much bigger city with more options for everything such as dining, nightlife, just really anything kind of going on that you wanted to have. It's got a lot more bigger box stores than, somewhere like Vero Beach would have, or Sebastian especially, just more shopping options. I don't know if they have like a Whole Foods or anything like that, but possibly a Costco last time I checked. But Melbourne, Florida does just have a lot more options to choose from as far as where you're going shopping, where the dining is, where the nightlife is, if you want to go out and be active as far as that's concerned. Pro number 3 is also going to be the high quality educational institutions that's there. So more specifically, it's going to be FIT. That's where my sister went. She got a full scholarship. Congrats to her for that with rowing. So she was part of the crew team for high school and then took that and moved that over onto the college part of it and then got a full ride scholarship to go through FIT. And now she is re-engineering people's limbs and, just things that's totally out of my spectrum as to my knowledge level about that type of stuff. So pretty cool, really great college. Florida Institution of Technology is what it stands for, FIT stands for. So if that's the spectrum or the, just the kind of the field that you wanted to focus on when going to school, or maybe your kids are kind of interested in that, that is a great option there locally within Melbourne to where you don't have to pay those high boarding fees or whatever it is whenever you have to live on campus and then pay for that extra stuff. They could just live at home, commute to campus, and then come on back if they, if you're living in Melbourne. All right, now time for the not so fun part, but we got to be honest with you in these videos. So first thing's going to be the cons. So con number 1 is going to be it has a little bit higher cost of living when compared to the neighboring cities. So I don't know. I mean, we've kind of gone through this before where we've gone on the internet and kind of pros and cons and taken, what things cost from one city to the other. I don't think it's going to be that much higher than, a Vero Beach or a Sebastian by instance. I think everything's just high right now. High cost of living, high insurance, high property taxes. That's going to be the biggest thing for that one. So I'm going to kind of write that one off and maybe just cross that little con out that I wanted to say. But number 2 is definitely going to stay here, and that is the traffic congestion that you have to deal with when in a bigger city. So with 86,000 people within Melbourne, I believe that's just within the city limits. So it goes, I'm sure it goes much higher than that when you go outside of the city limits. Definitely something you're gonna have to deal with when going to a busier area with a lot more commercial activity and things like that. Now, moving on to con number 3 for you fishermen out there who just want to throw out a line or just possibly want to go offshore. This is more specific to them. If you want to go offshore, catch some sailfish, mahi, red snapper, bottom drop offshore, you're going to have to make quite the commute up north to go off of an inlet, to find an inlet, because there is no inlet within Melbourne city limits. And I believe it's actually up in Cape Canaveral where the cruise ships will come and go. That lock right there is going to be the closest inlet for you to be able to get to the ocean when living in Melbourne, Florida. So that's definitely something that you have to think about, especially if you plan on being a boater and you want to just stay, or if you want to take your boat offshore. All right, now moving on down to Palm Bay. So Palm Bay, first of all, let's talk about the population. 123,000 people are currently living in Palm Bay. It is growing like crazy. There is all sorts of vacant land that was sitting there whenever I was growing up. We would take our dirt bikes out there, go to this place called the Compound. So that was an unfinished neighborhood that I still think is still there. But Palm Bay, a lot of that undeveloped area whenever I was growing up is now someone's living room, someone's, we were four-wheeling and doing donuts and all that kind of stuff where someone's kitchen is right now today. So Palm Bay, 123,000 people. Let's go ahead and jump into the pros and cons. So first pro is going to be affordable living costs. This is without a doubt the most affordable place to live within that stretch of area that we work with. If you want to be close to the coast, Palm Bay is where you get the most bang for your buck. It's where you get new construction houses, which I promote a ton due to its insurance cost savings and everything else that goes along with new construction, like the warranties, the fact that you don't have to worry about your AC, your roof, your everything else. That's one thing. So affordable cost of living, that's where you get the most bang for your buck as far as housing is concerned, and probably everything else too. Number 2 is going to be that it's more spread out. So you have a lot more, I think the lots there are about 1/4 acres, so you're spread out more. You don't have to be inside these tiny little HOA neighborhoods where you can barely fit a lawnmower in between these houses. So that's something definitely consider there too. So within Palm Bay, as long as you're not within those HOA communities, they have a lot better sized lots for you to choose from. If you just wanted to have more space, more privacy, put up some shrubs, put up some, whatever it is you want to cocoon your house, cocoon your lot, you can do that. And number 3 is going to be access to quality educational institutions. So with that, you're close to Melbourne, you're close to FIT. I believe there is a Palm Bay UCF campus as well, which is pretty interesting there. I know a buddy of mine used to live up in Palm Bay, and where he was is you would actually have to take, it would say UCF campus, but it was a Palm Bay version of it, and I saw that every time when pulling in. So that's still there, and you can, take advantage of that as well if you are a Palm Bay resident. Now, again, for the not so fun stuff, the cons, we're going to start off with con number 1, which is limited nightlife. So you people out there who want to go out, have fun, have a good time, there's not too many options there within Palm Bay. It's more commercial, shopping, dining, that sort of stuff, but I don't think you're going to be hitting the club anytime soon in Palm Bay. At least not from what I've experienced growing up, being so close to it. We drove all the way up to Orlando for that. That's con number 1. Con number 2 is going to be fewer job opportunities when compared to Melbourne. So with less commercial, less things going on, of course, comes back to less jobs and less just industries parking their offices or whatever it may be within Palm Bay. But the good thing is you're just about 15-20 minutes from Melbourne when living in Palm Bay, so you can easily commute to there while enjoying the lower cost of living that Palm Bay has to offer. Con number 3 is the biggest one, the absolute biggest con that I can think of for Palm Bay, and maybe the reason as to why it is so much more affordable, is there's no bridge. If you want to go to the beach, you got to go up to Melbourne, or you got to go down south to Webasto. Depending on which part of Palm Bay that you're living in, whether it's the northern part or southern part, will dictate which bridge you are going to be closest to get to the beach. You're far away from the beach when living in Palm Bay, especially in those newer parts. Now moving on to Sebastian. All right, so beautiful Sebastian, Florida, one of my favorites. Love going up there. My in-laws live there. and we visit all the time. It just has such a charm to it. Honestly, Sebastian just got a great charm to it. With that charm comes a lower population. So we were talking 86,000, 123,000. Now with Sebastian, you have a population of 26,000. Baby little 26,000. Now with that, of course, is going to come with some pros and cons. So let's just start about the pros. So first pro, pretty obvious, is going to be it's a small town feel and a close-knit community. So everyone really gets together, has a good time. Everyone's there with the same mentality. And if you're not, you kind of tend to leave Sebastian if you don't have this mentality. Flip-flops, shorts, Hawaiian shirts, not so much Hawaiian shirts. I guess that's kind of more vacation-y. But anyway, flip-flop shorts, t-shirts, and a beer in your hand, no more Bud Light. But so you can have beer in your hand, enjoy the views of the river, because that Indian River Drive is really going to be a great area for you to go. They got the Tiki Bar there, Jamaican restaurants, Captain Hiram, Squid Lips. You've heard me say it 100 times. If you haven't heard the channel before, then I'm sorry, this is all going to be new to you. But all those places, there's Earl's Hideaway, where if you're a biker, you want to get a Harley Davidson, an Indian bike, or whatever the other brands are, and just line it up next to everyone on the river, have a view of your bike on the river, take some pictures, have a beer, get some, pizza, subs, whatever from Earl's Hideaway. That is one of the best, great little places there to hang out, is off of Sebastian. So that close, tight-knit community is pro number one that I wanted to talk about for Sebastian. Number two is going to be the abundance of natural attractions and outdoor activities. So lots of parks, it's very old Florida. You can go up and down the Jungle Trail, and the Jungle Trail is just this dirt road with a lot of other, little walking trails and docks that go over the, the lagoon, and just really, really, really cool stuff that you get to choose from when living in Sebastian, Florida, and you could take advantage of all of that natural beauty that Florida has to offer. Number three is going to be lower cost of living when compared to larger cities. So Sebastian does have a lower cost of living. It was a big difference between Vero Beach and Sebastian at one point, but now we're starting to close that gap. I think the appeal of being in that smaller town that Vero Beach used to have, now that Vero Beach is growing, it is now carrying over to Sebastian, Florida. So that same appeal for being kind of a smaller area, less congestion, this and that and the other, has carried over. And then Sebastian is now just about even with Vero Beach as far as cost of living, a little bit less. It's still a little bit of a different market, but we're noticing a lot of similarities between the two. So anywhere in Indian River County is definitely jumping up in price because of that. And it's because of some other things that I'm going to talk about later and in other videos. All right, now for the cons for Sebastian. One of the biggest ones is going to be the limited job opportunities. So if you're coming here, you want to find a job, Sebastian really doesn't have much. I mean, maybe you could be a waiter, waitress at one of the places off of Indian River Drive. A lot of those people have been doing it for years. Everyone knows them by their first name. It's that type of vibe here. So if you're trying to get in the door and finding some big industry or this and that and the other, probably not the best place to do it. But I will tell you the industries that I do recommend that Sebastian needs big time. Anyone in the trades, if you are a tradesman, plumber, electrician, if you know how to build pools, if you're a roofer, all those things can definitely be needed within Sebastian, Florida and Vero Beach. And you can really just make that your home base, which would be a beautiful home base to have. And then just really work up and down the East Coast if you wanted to. But you'll have plenty of business when living in Sebastian. So that's kind of a con, but it's not a con if you're in the right, if you're in the right industry. That's what I would recommend. So fewer job opportunities when compared to, the neighboring cities like Melbourne, Orlando, Miami, all the other big ones here too. But those come with higher cost of living. Now for con number two is going to be that it has fewer amenities and entertainment options. So you already saw me talk about, the Tiki Bar, the Captain Hiram's, the Earl's Hideaway, the Squid Lips, the Mulligans, and etc. So it has all of that. But as far as, big box stores, yes, we have a Walmart. Yes, we have, several Publixes, Winn-Dixie, those sort of things. But if you're looking for any kind of like just shopping for, like you were in West Palm Beach and you expect that big strip of stores, you're not going to find that in Sebastian. It is definitely more small town, laid back, fishing village type of thing where you just have your necessities, but you're going to have to travel for that kind of vacation. So that is con number two. Con number three is going to be no major educational institutions. So and that's within the city limits. So no private schools either. So you've got no colleges and no private schools. Yes, you have Indian River State College down in Vero Beach. You've got a campus there. And then you've also down in Fort Pierce, if you're willing to travel that far, you can go about 45 minutes to Fort Pierce to go to that Indian River State College. But for a daily commute, that can definitely add up as far as the mileage and just, taking a toll on how much you're commuting to school. That's a lot. I did it from Vero Beach to Fort Pierce every single morning, so I know how big of a struggle it is, although I chose 7 a.m. classes when I was like 18 years old, so that's probably a big reason why I didn't enjoy it. But anyway, so that's something you can do if you have the stomach to do that. Now it's time for my favorite, Vero Beach, where I live, where I grew up. So a lot of you, if you ever search online for the population of Vero Beach, it'll probably say around 17,000. That means the city limits. It's kind of weird how it works out. You can still have a Vero Beach address and not be within the Vero Beach city limits. So you'll see 2 different types of cop cars. So you'll see the Vero Beach Police, which is within the city limits, and the sheriff's, which is for the county. We have 2 different water sources, so you can get county water or city water, county sewer or city sewer. So that first number of 17,000, that's probably not going to change too much because the city limits of Vero Beach really is built out. I mean, you will maybe see people tearing down old houses and then putting up new ones where the old existing ones were, but that's not going to increase the population. Another thing that's not going to increase the population is we're never going to allow, at least knock on wood, never going to allow any buildings higher than 3 or 4 stories. So depending on the height of the building, I think you can maybe squeeze another story in there. Before I get ahead of myself, you might see 17,000. In reality, it's about 94,000 people is the population of Vero Beach. So let's just jump into the pros and cons before I talk myself to death. So starting off with number 1 is going to be the rich cultural attractions and art scene within Vero Beach. So we've got the Vero Beach Art Museum. We've got it where they shut down downtown, shut down Ocean Drive. They'll be selling their artwork, different fish sculptures, or sculptures. Fish sculptures. Try saying that. You have all sorts of different things like that, like art made out of metal, art made, paintings and things like this and that and the other. Things that you find like on an Etsy store, a lot of people within Vero Beach do, and then they sell on their tent. So they'll have that store, but then you'll get to see it in person whenever they do those events. So that's number 1. Number 2 is going to be the beautiful beaches and the building height restrictions. So I just talked about that. You won't find any high rises here, which helps keep the population down. So that's one of the best parts about it. It's why I was talking about it whenever I was regarding the population, is the fact that if you're not stacking buildings on top of each other like this and this and this and this, and it's all the way up here, number 1, you're not ruining the view of your beach. When you go over the bridge, you can see the beautiful coastline when you do that. Number 2, you don't have hundreds upon thousands of people within these condos because they're not stacked 40, 50, 100 stories on top of each other. It's only 3 or 4, which is the best part about Vero. That's really going to be pro number 2 as far as that. And then pro number 3, what I wanted to end that one on, is that it's a great place to retire. So you've got all sorts of things, like the Quail Valley Country Club is where my mom has worked for several years. She's an esthetician there, so if you ever are able to get her booked, which she's in very high demand all the time, consider yourself lucky, because I guess she's like one of the most loved ones there as far as the estheticians within Quail Valley. So you've got country clubs, you've got plenty of golf courses, you've got hiking trails, non-crowded beaches, shops and restaurants all up and down Ocean Drive and downtown. So all of those things really factor into why Vero Beach is a great place to retire, and not only just retire, but to live. Although sometimes I feel like I'm, not necessarily retired, because I'm always on the phone doing real estate, doing this, taking videos. But the fact that I get to enjoy that kind of laid back lifestyle just gives me early excitement as to what to look forward to when work does start dying down, because it's been crazy. Let's go ahead and jump on to the cons here too. Cons number 1, we're going to talk about this one being a smaller population with fewer job opportunities. So you've got more than Sebastian, but less than Melbourne, and probably less than Palm Bay because of the proximity to everything else. So not too many job opportunities to pick from within Vero Beach. If you're a remote worker, that's great. If you're a real estate agent, I'll tell you it's pretty good too. And now for con number 2, I know we've used this one a lot, but I just want you to know how these compare to each other, is that it has higher cost of living when compared to other neighboring cities. So higher property costs, Property taxes goes along with that, although it's not the worst. And then also just everything else kind of carries over into that. So insurance, everything else, being on the coast, those are all kind of the same, but higher cost of living when compared to, let's say, like Palm Bay, for instance. Now time for con number 3 is going to be walkability. So walkability within Vero Beach is not necessarily there. It's very car reliant, and something that you just have to consider when moving down. So if you want to live somewhere where it's you can just walk to this, walk to that, walk to the other, where I have a bike, I have an e-bike, and I can get to the grocery store and Chipotle and Chick-fil-A and, you know, the Indian River Mall and the gym and all this other kind of stuff within about 5-6 minute bike ride. I guess that works out, but the bike goes 20 miles an hour, so I don't know. Take that time minus, you know, what is it, a half-hour walk? I wouldn't necessarily want to do that. So that is con number 3. And then now let's move on to the next city. So one that I did not say in the intro, and this is going to be a little bit of a bonus, is going to be Fort Pierce. So first of all, talking about the population of Fort Pierce is 47,000. The population is at 47,000 for Fort Pierce. And now let's jump into the pros that we have for that. So pro number 1 is going to be affordable living costs. This is about where you can find the cheapest housing depending on where you look. And it's going to be a lot more affordable as far as the initial purchase than a lot of other places. But we're going to figure out to why that can go up higher here in just a second. Pro number 2 is going to be the historic charm or historical charm with a great downtown area. So my wife and I love going to downtown Fort Pierce. It's a beautiful little area. They've got an awesome farmer's market. It's right there in the water with the inlet and the beautiful boats and the marinas and, you know, just the big offshore, you know, boats and things like that you have all around. Restaurants on the water. You know, you got the jetty where you could take your rum runner to go and all sorts of just fun stuff, right? Like it's a great little area. You could do, I think when I was on the Carroll team before, we did axe throwing down in downtown Fort Pierce and just had a great time. So that is pro number 2. And then pro number 3 is going to be the tons of fun and beauty near the inlet. You know, you've got the what do they call it? The cove, where you can go and just drop your boat down. And if you have a boat, even just a little tiny small one, 14, 16 feet, you can still take that over to the cove and have a great time. On the weekends, it is completely packed, lined up with boats, lots of people having fun, having a good time, just, you know, unloading for the weekend after a long work week. So that's just the way that it works down there in Fort Pierce. And that involves everybody, not just Fort Pierce natives, but a lot of people from Vero Beach go down to the cove as well because it's so close. Now talking about the cons, so higher crime rate when compared to neighboring cities. So you just have to realize that when you look at a crime map, it lights up whenever you see Fort Pierce. And that's con number 1. Now, con number 2 is going to be the fewer job opportunities and economic growth within Fort Pierce. So that's, that's something to take into consideration there too. You know, not too many job opportunities. I mean, yes, they have orange groves there, you know, things like that. I think they have more industrial jobs than they do in Vero Beach and Sebastian. So a little bit more to choose from, but not as much as the Melbourne and Palm Bay and then anywhere north from there. Also con number 3. This is the biggest one. This is the one that I wanted to talk to you guys about the most, which is the higher property taxes. Guys, down in St. Lucie County, which is where Fort Pierce starts off, their property taxes are some of the highest in the state, if not the highest in the state. When you buy a house in Fort Pierce, especially new construction where all you're paying, because you pay taxes in arrears, all you're paying is the taxes on the land itself. When that property is built and becomes assessed after you buy it, your property taxes are going to probably blow your mind within Fort Pierce or Port Saint Lucie. So I'm going to carry that one down to there. So something to consider. Definitely take a look at what people are paying. If it seems low, they probably have a homestead cap of 3% increase on their property, and they probably lived there for quite a few years before selling it. So definitely look at those things when going onto the tax websites. So now talking about the neighboring city to the south, this is going to be the biggest one here, and that is Port Saint Lucie, Florida. Alrighty guys, so Port Saint Lucie, PSL, they have absolutely opened up the floodgates. The population there is 202,000 people. I say it quietly because I don't want anywhere. I mean, that's just crazy. 202,000 people. I know that that's probably tiny little minuscule numbers when compared to probably where you're from up in the Northeast, Midwest, out west, out in California, wherever you're coming from. That's probably a baby number, but to us, I mean, that's big. Lots of congestion, and they really can't handle it either. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but first let's go over the pros. So the pros is, number one is going to be the rapid population and economic growth. So lots of stores, lots of cool restaurants, trendy restaurants, those sort of things all come to where the population grows this much. So Port St. Lucie, you're going to get, a lot more benefit as far as where all the people flood to, what is going to benefit out of that. So you've got master plan communities and cool businesses looking to move down to Port St. Lucie because that's where the people are. Pro number two is going to be the fact that it has a low crime rate and safe neighborhood. So especially down there in Port St. Lucie West, where it's just more pristine. It has like a Boca Raton feel to it, honestly. It's like a mini Boca Raton. Out in Port St. Lucie West, which is everything super manicured. They have like the tile roofs and HOA neighborhoods and guards and golf courses and golf carts, I guess, go along with that. Country clubs. That sort of stuff is just littered all around Port St. Lucie, and it's given me a lot more respect for the area itself. So Port St. Lucie is beautiful, especially over there, and in Traditions, Florida too. So Traditions is a part of Port St. Lucie, which is just its other community development district, CDD. So you have to pay some CDD fees there too, which we're going to cover in just a second. Pro number three is going to be the increasing number of amenities and attractions. I've already kind of covered that with that. So that kind of packages in or into number one, I believe is what I was saying. So con number one, it's going to be the limited cultural attractions and nightlife. So with Port St. Lucie, a lot of the people moving down as retirees, so you're not going to get the big city, young lifestyle clubs and nightlife and bars and this and that and the other. It's more so just kind of catered towards retirees who wanted to move down, slow down, but also have plenty to choose from. Number two is going to be the traffic congestion during the peak hours. So that is definitely something that, if you are trying to get off the exit 95 in the morning, in the afternoon, with Port St. Lucie, very, very hard to do, very congested. But they're working on a lot of the roads. I just don't think they're doing it fast enough. So road work takes years, guys. That's something to consider. That con number two is that it has higher traffic congestion during the peak hours. Number three is going to be the higher costs of living. So where that comes into effect is the higher property taxes that I was talking about. Also, HOA fees can be very unreasonable, $600, $800, $1,000, $2,000 per month to live in Port St. Lucie. I'm not kidding, guys. Talk to us about, before you wanted to make that move down to Port St. Lucie, make sure that you get the full picture. Talk to a realtor. And that realtor will be able to guide you through everything about what's going on in Port St. Lucie as far as the fees. Also, you have what's called CDD fees, which is Community District or Community Development District fees that are constantly going to go up. So don't be fooled by the lower housing prices. So yes, I'm able to find this house here. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $375, but in Vero it's $450. Yeah, but in Vero you're paying $4,000, $5,000 a year in property taxes, while in Port St. Lucie you're paying $12. And also we don't have, $400, $500 HOA fees, along with another, what could it be, $800 to $1,000 CDD fees a year, all packed on top of that. So take those things into account. Port St. Lucie is not a easier or a lower price to live or cost place to live unless you're on the east side. The east side doesn't have many CDDs or anything going on like that, but the west side and those master plan communities definitely come with some higher costs that you need to consider before making the move down there. So guys, that really kind of wraps up the whole video. That is Melbourne, Palm Bay, Sebastian, Vero Beach, Fort Pierce, and Port St. Lucie all wrapped up into one video. I tried to cover as much as I can. I go off on tangents. I'm sorry about that. But again, if you ever wanted to call me about something specific, I promise I won't go off on that much of a tangent on you on our phone calls. So be free or feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email, because we promise that we'll have your back when making that move down here to the Florida East Coast. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.